The Dogg Pound, Dog Food. It's been a while. Welcome to It's Been a While. I'm Free Tillman, the only guy on the internet that doesn't know everything. This is a series where I talk about albums that I loved as a kid, but for whatever reason I stopped listening to them. And today we're talking about Dog Food by The Dogg Pound. Before I continue, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when I release a new video. And leave a comment. Now that I got that out of the way, let's talk about Dog Food. This is possibly the first cassette I ever bought with my own money. Shout out to Eminem Beauty Supply and Music Store. In the 90s, you could go to any black neighborhood and pick up some Pink Lotion and the new Wu-Tang CD at the same place. I don't know why it's a thing to combine beauty supplies and music, but it worked. Sadly, Eminem doesn't exist anymore, but I will always remember you. The last time I heard this album in full was maybe 10 or 15 years ago. I think maybe I was trying to rebuild my old music collection on iTunes, and I remember thinking how well this album still held up, but for whatever reason, I haven't listened to it since then. I looked at the track listing and I remember every song, so I feel like this is going to be less of a review and a full celebration of how great this album is. So let's see if I'm right. This intro contains a vocal sample that Dr. Dre would use a few times in his career. It's a sample of a man saying like we always do about this time. The sample is taken from the poem The Shalimar performed by Galen Kane, who was a founding member of the original Last Poets, who were pioneers of rap music in general and spoken word poetry specifically. Galen Kane is also the father of Khalil Kane, who played Raheem in Juice, which starred Tupac, who was also signed to death row a year after this album. And that's why Tupac is still alive. Should probably talk about the music now, huh? The first song is Dogg Pound Gangsters, and in it we hear the first time DPG directly disses Bone Thugs and Harmony, with Corrupt saying, "Ain't got no love for no hoes in Harmony." This was obviously about the Death Row and Ruthless Records beef and probably didn't have anything to do with them directly. Bone fired back on Shots to the Double Glock and Mo Murder off the East 99 Eternal album. The beef ended a few years later in 1999 when Crazy Bone had Snoop and Corrupt on his Thug Mentality record, and they worked together numerous times since, so it's good to see that the feud didn't go too far. Also on the song, Corrupt mentions Keith Murray, which is interesting to me because I always saw them as very similar artists. They both have very unorthodox flows, both are a little unhinged on and off the mic. They both tend to use big words whether they fit or not, so it was cool to hear Corrupt reference him in this song. Respect is one of only 2 songs on this album that was co-produced by Dr. Dre. Dre even intros the song using the same outro he used on Keep Their Heads Ringing from the Friday soundtrack. The song features Prince Idol Joe, who is a familiar voice on Death Row albums. One thing I didn't know about him was that in 1994 he released a collaborative album with Marky Mark called Life in the Streets that wasn't released in the US but was apparently a big Eurodance hit in Germany. Unfortunately, he died in a car crash in 2001, so rest in peace Prince Idol Joe. Next we have New York, New York, a song that's usually cited as the starting of the East Coast, West Coast beef. I talked a little about this in an episode of Never Heard It where me and Theory Has It were talking about the CNN album, The War Report. You should go check that out if you haven't already. The song itself isn't a diss song. If anything, it's a celebration of New York as the hook interpolates the song New York, New York by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5. If you don't know the story, the Dogg Pound trailer was shot at while they were filming. The guys were understandably upset and Snoop Dogg kicked over a building in the video. CNN released LA, in which 2 DPG lookalikes got thrown off the Queensboro Bridge. DPG responded with the song New York 87 featured DJ Quick on the intro. The Dogg Pound deadly threatened Tupac, but it was never officially released. And if you've never heard it, I'd have to say that of the 3 songs we're talking about, this was the only one that feels like an actual diss song. And in it, Corrupt says the truest thing about the whole situation. Basically, that CNN were doing a song for a video that got blown out of proportion. I don't want to dwell on this too much because there are places all over the internet to get more information about the DJ Pooh beat, the St. Ives commercial, Prodigy being left off LA, all that stuff. I just want to say that while I love this song as a standalone track, the legacy of it really makes me sad, and I wish we were living in a timeline where none of this ever happened. DJ Pooh produced 2 songs on this album, one of them being New York, New York, and the other one is the next song, Smooth. Those two songs also happen to be the only two songs that don't feature a verse from Daz. I don't know if that means anything or not, but it's true. Smooth is also the first time Val Young was featured on a Death Row track, and if you're a Death Row or a West Coast hip hop fan, you've probably seen her name in the credits quite a few times. She was originally a backup singer for George Clinton and the Gap Band in the 70s. That's her singing on Oops Upside Your Head. She became a solo artist in the 80s when she started working with Rick James, and in the 90s she worked mostly with Death Row. Her most famous work being To Live and Die in LA by Machiavelli, and to this day she's still doing amazing work. Next up is Psycho Like No featuring Mr. Malik. I talked a bit about Mr. Malik on his feature on Warren G's Regulate album in an episode of It's Been a While. It's hard to find any real information about him. I've read that he's Snoop Dogg's cousin. I don't know if that's true, but that would explain why he popped up on so many West Coast albums. After his group Illegal broke up, he was set to release a solo album, but it was shelved. And after about 1995, we didn't hear much from him. In 2005, he released a compilation album called The Game Needs Me under the name Emperor Malik, aka Hershey Hefner, that you can find on MySpace. There are so many things wrong with that sentence I just said, but in spite of that, his guest verse, as with all of his guest verses, is pretty great. Let's Play House is the second single from the album and the only other song co-produced by Dr. Dre. The original version of the song features Warren G. I think he may have been taken off the album because he was a Def Jam artist and Suge probably frowned on that. The original version is about 2 minutes longer because of a spoken word outro by Big Pip and Delmon. On Foxy Brown's sophomore album China Doll, there's an interlude that is literally just the first minute of Bomb Ass Pussy. This was around the time when Foxy and Corrupt were dating, so of course this feels more like an inside joke. One thing that has always baffled me since I first read the credits for this album in 1995 was that Corrupt produced the song So Much Style. If it is true that he made that beat, why didn't we get more beats from Corrupt? It is a mystery. There are genuinely no bad songs on this album, but with a runtime of over an hour, A Dog's Day Afternoon and Reality probably could have been left off. But overall, this is a case of one of the best MCs of their generation and one of the best producers of their generation making a classic album. This album deserves to be mentioned in the same breath as Doggy Style, The Chronic, It Was Written, and The Infamous. I definitely need to put this back in my rotation. So when's the last time you heard Dogg Food? Are you still bumping it to this day? I'm going to keep reviewing albums until I run out. Until then, I am Free Tillman, the only guy on the internet that doesn't know everything. Peace.